Hi guys, welcome back to Football Heaven 24/7. Um, Basically, today I'm doing a review on the Championship, League One and League Two, and the players that have been signed, the key players for each of these teams. We're going to go through through each individual team. I'm going to give my view on who I think could be the surprise package. Now, in a previous episode, I thought the surprise package for me would be Coventry, but one of the teams that seems to have invested a lot in transfers has been Cardiff City this season. Um, a lot of them have come in on free transfers, to be fair. Cardiff City, they've got Ryan Allsop from Derby. Romain Sawyers has come in from West Bromwich Albion. Jack Anick has come in from St Mirren. Uh, Ojo has come in from Liverpool, who used to play for Cardiff a few seasons back. Callum O'Dowd has come in from Bristol City. Marlon Romeo has come in from Millwall. Ebo Adams has come in from Forest Green. Jemalu Collins from Paderborn in Germany. Andy Riamata or whatever his name is coming from Reading. And there's been a few other signings as well. Cedric Kipre from West Bromwich Albion. So they've done a few key signings, but out of all those players they've brought in, I think Shea Ojo from Liverpool, Callum O'Dowd, who's done brilliantly at Bristol City over the last few seasons that he's been there. Romain Sawyers was really good for West Bromwich Albion a couple of seasons ago, petered off a little bit, but with the right man management, that player could pick up again. And I feel so with Ryan Allsop, who's the goalkeeper that's coming from Derby. Last season, Derby had a minus 21 point difference, as we know, but they still put up a good fight. Ended up going down in the end, obviously. But, Ryan Allsop was a great keeper for them. He kept a lot of clean sheets, did a lot of fantastic things. So I think he could do big things at Cardiff. At Cardiff, Dion Phillips and Smithies were the main goalkeepers. They've got rid of Smithies off the wage bill. I believe he was getting paid something like 60 odd thousand, which is a lot for a championship team to be paying out. Sorry, so very interesting. Some of the key players to have left Cardiff this season are Aidan Flint, who's gone to Stoke City, Marlon Pack's gone to Portsmouth, Will Volks, who had a good few seasons at Cardiff, went to Sheffield Wednesday to help their push in League One, and there's a couple of other random players, younger players that have gone out on loan and stuff like that. So I think Cardiff could be a surprise package. I believe I did Cardiff to finish 12th or 13th in the Championship, but Cardiff would not surprise me if they sneaked into a playoff place. So didn't originally predict them there, but I think someone like Cardiff could be on the fringes of the playoffs if some of those players who were a little bit underappreciated at slightly bigger clubs come through for Cardiff. Mainly the ones that have come in from West Brom, as in Cedric Kipre in the left back, and excuse me, and also Romain Sawyers in the central defensive midfield area. Be interesting to see what happens at Cardiff. So that'll be an interesting one. Looking at the other teams, the teams that came down, Norwich, they've not really brought in loads of players. They've brought in Gabriel Sara from Sao Paulo in Brazil for 6 million. Isaac Hayden on loan from Newcastle United on loan for the season. Looking at Watford, who have just come down, Ray Minaj from Barcelona. I hope he's not related to Nicki Minaj. That could be a bit crazy. And then we got Vakun Issouf Bayo from Charleroi in Belgium for 5 million. So a couple of players, never heard of them before, if I'm honest. Like a lot of us, we've never heard of some of these players. But who knows what could happen? Obviously, I've heard of Isaac Hayden that going, obviously playing for Newcastle, going to Norwich. That he could be pretty good, obviously at Championship level. So a little bit of a boost to those squads. Another team that came down, Burnley, they've obviously been taken over by Vincent Company, as I've said in a previous episode. Vincent Company, obviously Manchester City legend, played there for I think 11, 12 years, won pretty much everything apart from the Champions League with Manchester City. Um, we're looking at Burnley. They've lost a lot of players. They lost Nathan Collins, who was a great defender that they brought in last season. But he's gone to Wolves for 20.5 million, so that's a good return for them from what they spent previously. Nick Pope, their main goalkeeper for Burnley last season in the Premier League, he's gone to Newcastle United to help them in their quest to get into Europa Leagues, possibly. He's gone for 10 million. James Tarkowski has gone on a free, probably their best defender at Burnley last season. and Ben Mee has gone to Brentford in the Premier League as well. Wayne Hennessy obviously gone to Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. He wasn't really used much, and then the rest is just sort of like young players. Wout Weghorst that came in for one season last season, they put him out on loan. I suspect that's because his wages are too big to justify in the Championship. So I'm guessing Besiktas, the Turkish team, have obviously gone halves with Burnley on the cost of his wages, that kind of thing. I mean, maybe they've paid 60-40, that kind of thing. So we'll see what happens. But Burnley, they've brought in a couple of players. One player that was on fire last season in League One that could be very useful in the Championship this season. Scott Twine is coming from MK Dons. They bought him for 4 million. He was scoring a lot of goals for MK Dons last year. He scored 20 odd goals. Josh Cullen, who used to be a West Ham youth player, he's moved around a bit on loan, but he's coming from Anderlecht for 2.7 million. I'm guessing he had a good season at Anderlecht last year in the Belgian league. So it'd be interesting to see how he gets on in the Championship. I should say he'd be pretty good if he's been playing for Anderlecht. Anderlecht would probably be like a top half of the table Championship team if we're going to be comparing them. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Josh Cullen gets on. Scott Twine, he can only get better and better as a young player. Obviously had a fantastic season, like I said, at MK Dons last year. They've brought in a few other players, a few unknowns that I don't know too much about. Luke McAnally, which I can only guess is a young lad. He's coming from Oxford for 1.8 million. Samuel Bastien is coming from another Belgian team, Saint Lige. That's 720k. And there's a couple of Manchester City young players. Egan Riley from Manchester City. Ajanat Muric has come in. He's a goalkeeper, I think, from Manchester City. And then Taylor Harewood Bellis has come in from Manchester City on loan. And then another loan player from the Chelsea youth system has come in. Ian Maitson has come in from Chelsea. So got those players. And so who knows? Vincent Kompany, like I say, with these younger players, it's all about man management. It's all about how they can influence these young players, build them up, help them to reach their potential, help them to realise how great they can be, in their individual positions. So, be interesting to see. I predicted Burnley would end up in the playoffs. I can't see them getting promoted automatically. Most of the pundits are going for Norwich and Watford to go straight back up automatically. A lot of them are saying Sheffield United, Middlesbrough, West Brom, and possibly Burnley are going to end up in the playoffs. There's a lot going on actually about Sunderland. Sunderland had a long time in League One, as we know. They were there for 3 seasons. They've finally got back up into the Championship. Racing Post got them down to finish 7th, just outside the playoffs. Now, looking at who they've got in, they've got Jack Clark, former youth player at Tottenham. He's come in. He's been on loan for a few teams. He should be good at, obviously, Championship level. There's another young player that's come in from West Ham's youth team. Aji Elise has come in from West Ham. And Dan Ballard's come in from Arsenal. And Leon Dijaku from Union Berlin. Union Berlin has sold a few players, most notably Taiwu, I can't even say his name, Awumni, who's scored 15 goals from last season, and he's obviously playing at Forest in the Prem this season coming up. But Sunderland 7th, I don't quite see why they've put Sunderland 7th, to be honest. Because the players they've bought in, yeah, okay, they're good. There must be some of the best players in the youth system, but if they were, surely those players would have been kept at the clubs for longer. So a couple of these have come through on deals, as you can see. It's undisclosed amounts, so obviously we don't know what they are, but interesting to see if these players will be any good at Championship level. So we'll see what happens. Sunderland might have a really good season. They could be one of the surprise ones. Coventry, as I mentioned, what I think was going to be the surprise package, I thought, because Mark Robbins, is doing some great, he's doing some great development of this team. They've come up slowly but surely. They've had some great results last season, beating a lot of good teams. They beat Forest at the start of the season. They beat a number of great teams that finished in the sort of top half of the table and they didn't finish far off the top themselves. They sort of petered away towards the end of the season, finishing 12th. But they had a really good home record and they had a really good season. They've just brought in a few players, nothing crazy. Casey Palmer, they've brought in a young lad from Bristol City, undisclosed fee. They've got a player in called Jonathan Panzo on loan from Forest. He's already scored 3 goals in pre-season for him already, so he looks like he could be a useful midfield player. And you got Callum Doyle, it's another young lad coming from Manchester City on loan for the season. So be interested to see what happens with that. A couple of players went out. Jordan Shipley was a decent player for Coventry for a number of years, but he's gone out on undisclosed fee to League One Shrewsbury. And there's a few other players that have left for smaller teams as well, like Newport County, Shrewsbury again, that kind of thing. So be interested to see what happens. Millwall's another team that got close last year. They finished ninth. Obviously, I'm loath to sort of talk too much about Millwall because obviously live around a lot of West Ham fans, but Millwall, I predict will have a good season. I think I said that they might end up in the playoffs or just outside. So we'll see what happens with them. Looking at Stoke, they've been investing a few players in money and getting a few players in, but mainly on loans and stuff. Aidan Flint's come in, really useful defender in the Championship. He's coming from Cardiff. Josh Lauren, who was doing one of the key players at Reading, even though they had a bad season last year, he's come in. And there's a younger lad called Liam McCarron from Leeds United's come in. Dwight Gale, most notably. Now, Dwight Gale has been playing at Premier League level with Newcastle. We haven't really been playing. He's been just on the bench most of the time. Maybe he's had the odd substitute appearance, but not much has been happening for him, So I think he's still a useful player. I think at Championship level he'll do well. He did play for West Brom at Championship level in the past. Obviously, he's played for Newcastle down that level before, but I think he'll be a really, really useful player if the manager can get the best out of him. Michael O'Neill, the former Northern Ireland international manager who did wonders with Northern Ireland, obviously back in the day. So Stoke, they look interesting. They've got Will Smallbone, another guy who's on the fringes of Southampton's side. He's coming on loan for the season. Harry Clark, another young lad from Arsenal's coming. Interested to see what will happen there. Stokes, like I say, they've got a few good players have come in of note. We'll have to see how they get on. A lot of people are predicting them to sort of finish 10th, 11th, sort of 12th area. I would probably agree with that at the moment. Sheffield United, obviously, they just lost out last year in the playoffs to Forest. Very, very close, lost out on penalties. They've not really invested loads. They've kept Max Lowe, who was on loan at Forest, but they don't want him, obviously, to give him to Forest because there's a big rivalry between Sheffield United and Forest. That's mainly to do with the mining strikes years ago in the 80s. Pits that got closed in Sheffield before Nottingham, that kind of thing. And obviously people that worked when others were trying to not work, because of all the stuff that Margaret Thatcher was doing. So it's pretty bad situation. But it's sort of been always become like a really big rivalry. Playing Sheffield United and Forest is probably almost not far off, Forest and Derby as far as angers against each other as fans, So I don't know, but Sheffield United, I think they could have a decent season. I don't think I predicted them to end up in the playoffs. I predicted them to be out just outside. Another team of note in the Championship is Middlesbrough. Chris Wilder done fantastic things with Sheffield United. He really picked up Middlesbrough's season last season. They tailed off a bit towards the end. They finished just outside the playoffs in 7th, but they weren't far off. They brought in a couple of key players. Zach Steffen, who was quite a good number 2 goalkeeper for Manchester City, has come in. Ryan Giles, who's coming on loan from Wolves, he was great for Cardiff City in the Championship last season. Done a few assists, done some good stuff. Darragh Lenihan, who was a really, really good defender, obviously Irish lad, for Blackburn over the last few seasons, young fella. There's some good key signings. Obviously, most notable player going out was Jed Spencer, who was on loan, who was shipped out on loan by Middlesbrough last season to Forest. He done so well, but he's gone for a transfer fee of 12.5 million. So Middlesbrough have got recouped some money. Maybe they'll invest in more players. The Championship season, League One and League Two, it's coming up on Saturday. First game of the actual weekend, or just before the weekend, is on the Friday. It's Huddersfield against Burnley. That's going to be huge. As I say, we've already talked about Burnley. Huddersfield, they had a fantastic season. They were probably the surprise package last year, finishing 3rd. Now, Carlos Corberán, the manager from that season, done wonders, like I say, got him to 3rd, but they lost out in the playoff final to Forest narrowly. Arguably, they could have had 2 penalties. But anyway, they lost out, but they've lost a few key players. Harry Toffolo's gone to Forest, and so is Lewis O'Brien. Both those players have gone off. Young lads gone to Well, Lewis O'Brien's a young lad. He's only 22, 23. He's gone to Forest. So they've brought in a few players, nothing too crazy, but Connor Mahoney from Millwall, Jack Radoni, who was a great player for AFC Wimbledon last year. I believe he got something like 16 or 18 goals. 800k is coming for, which I think is a bit of a bargain for him. He was scoring a lot of goals for Wimbledon through last season, and that was in a struggling team. Wimbledon, unfortunately, went down, but he still scored a lot of goals, that Jack Radoni guy. So interesting to see. There's a few other players I've never really heard about. Oh, Will Boyle was a useful player for Cheltenham. He's come in. There's a few leaders that they're getting in. One thing I noticed about Huddersfield last year is they got players in on free transfers because they're on a tight budget, but they made these players turn into something really, really great. Like Sober Thomas coming from non-league, he was probably one of their best players last season. So he absolutely smashed it out of the park. Huddersfield, they've got a good chance, but a lot of people are sort of saying it's going to be a mid-table season for them. Danny Schofield's taken over, a former player of them back in the heyday, back in the early noughties. So it'll be interesting to see how he'll do, how he'll get on. I think he was in the backroom staff previously. So we'll see what goes on. Luton were obviously in the playoffs last year. A lot of people are saying in the predictions Luton is going to finish mid-table. They brought in a couple of notable players, Luke Freeman, Corley Rodro from Barnsley, who used to be useful, didn't have a great season last year. Carter Morris, another useful player from Barnsley. Alfie Doughty from Stoke. Louis Watson from Derby, young player, I'm guessing. Ethan Horvath, who was a second choice keeper for Forest last season in the Championship. And Matt Ingram, which is another goalkeeper on loan from Hull. So they put a bit of backup in. I don't know where they'll end up. It's going to be a tough. The one thing about the Championship is they're always fighting. There's lots and lots of teams fighting to get into that playoff system. I would say, in my opinion, the Championship is the most exciting league in the world because you never know what teams are going to finish in that playoff area. You know, there's always two or three that surprise you. Huddersfield surprised last season. Forest surprised last season. There was a lot of great teams that got in there. Luton surprised even getting in there. You know, so it can be anybody's chance. And you know, like if you're someone that's a betting person, if you're going to put money on something, you know, you've got a good chance of getting something come in at 66-1 or something crazy like that. Anything could come in. Do you know what I mean? It could be a really, really great season for a lot of sides. So there's a lot of hope out there for a lot of teams. I'm not covering all the teams because it'll take way too long. But as I've said before, my predictions, I said that I thought Rotherham, Birmingham, and Blackpool would go down. You know, from the Championship into League One at the end of the 22-23 season. I believe I said that Norwich, West Bromwich Albion, and Burnley would go, and then Burnley would go up for the playoffs. So that's what I predicted for the Championship. Going into League One, I'm not going to spend just as long on League One and League Two, mainly because obviously I've spent a lot of time talking about the Championship and the comings and goings of some of the top teams in the Championship. In the predictions, there's been a few publications out there on the high street that have gone for Derby to sort of finish mid-table, but they're putting a hell of a lot of good players. James Collin, a great striker that was on at Cardiff. You've got David McGoldrick, seasoned veteran. He's about 32, 33. Played at a lot of good clubs. He's got some Premier League experience. He's played at He was at Sheffield United last season, and they had a great season, but he was on the fringes. I think he was left out of a lot of the games. So he's coming at Derby on League One level. Corey Smith's coming from Swansea. Who else have they got? James Chester, who's obviously a really experienced player. He was playing at Aston Villa not long ago, but he was playing at Stoke last season, done well. Nathaniel Mendes-Lang, they brought him in from Sheffield Wednesday, who came close last year in the playoffs. Conor Hourihane, that is a fantastic signing from Aston Villa. Premier League experience and Championship experience. Tom Bakusen, who was a great player for Preston. Joe Wildsmith, really, really good young goalkeeper for Sheffield Wednesday back in the day. A lot of experience at Championship levels and League One. So they've brought in a hell of a lot of players. You know, in my opinion, I'm a Forest fan and I've got me wearing a Man United. So I just like collecting the shirts, but I'm a Forest fan. But, you know, at the end of the day, I've got to be honest, you know, all rivalry aside, that's a very, very strong squad to be playing in the Championship. It's going to take a lot of injuries for Derby not to be up there in the promotion places. So I think Sheffield Wednesday Derby will be going up this season. Liam Rosenau's taken over. Okay, he's an unknown quantity. He's been sort of an assistant manager in the backroom staff to, I believe he was assistant to Wayne Rooney and Frank Lampard when they were managers at Derby. So be interesting to see what he does with them. We don't know what will happen. A few players went out of Derby. Ryan Alsop, as I said earlier, he's gone to Cardiff to play in the Championship. Colin Kazimierz has gone to a Turkish team abroad. Kelly Roos has gone up to Scotland to play for Aberdeen. Tom Lawrence has gone also up to Scotland to play for Glasgow Rangers. So there's a few players that have left there. A couple of other youngsters that have gone away. Malcolm Abui, I can't even say his name properly. Young fella. Derby's got quite a good youth system. He's gone to Crystal Palace, so they've got compensation for that. Interesting to see, but I think Derby will be up there. Unfortunately, I don't like to say it. I think Derby's got a good chance of winning the title in League One. Sheffield Wednesday, they're going to be up there. They brought in a few players. Will Vaulks, most notably from Cardiff, useful player. Michael, I can't even say it, a Hitchwheel, whatever his name is. He was a good player for Rotherham. He's come in. Tariq Backinson is coming from Barnsley, and Reece James, not the Reece James that plays for Chelsea, but one that played for Blackpool is coming on loan. So very, very interesting to see. A few players have left. Like I said, Joe Wildsmith has gone to Derby. It will obviously be another contender for the League One title with Sheffield Wednesday. I also think Peterborough's going to be strong. Grant McCann, former Scunthorpe United player, played in one of the best teams Scunthorpe ever had in the Championship, where they stayed up, and they went down, unfortunately, the next season. But he's a good manager. I think he'll do good things. Peterborough will end up in the playoffs. I do think Derby and Sheffield Wednesday will go up. I do tend to agree with some of the publications on the high street. I think Ipswich, Bolton, MK Dons are going to have a good chance of being up there. I'm loath to say MK Dons because they shouldn't exist, that club, as we all know. The only people I think that will disagree with that is MK Dons fans themselves, but plastic club, let's put it that way. A lot of money exchanged hands there, dodgy dealings, I reckon. Anyway, we got Barnsley, who are in 7th in the predictions on one of the publications I'm looking at. I don't think they'll finish there. I think they'll finish further down. Looking through some of the other teams, I think there's a few teams that are going to be up there. I think Joey Barton, he's got Bristol Rovers up. I think Bristol Rovers have got a good chance of even getting close to the playoffs in League One. They've done it before in previous years, not too long ago. They've won it. John Marquis from Lincoln, who's had a lot of experience at this level. James Connolly, another young lad, I believe is a striker from Cardiff's youth system. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Bristol Rovers. Lincoln City, they faltered a little bit. They lost Michael Appleton. They've got Mark Kennedy. I believe that's the former Liverpool player from years ago, from the 90s or early 90s. Interesting to see. A lot of players, they're talking about ones to watch. David McGoldrick, Derby County. James Norwood at Barnsley. He's gone in at Barnsley. Dominic Ball at Ipswich. I think Ipswich are going to be in the playoffs, so going to be challenging for that promotion place as well. Obviously, like I said in previous episodes, they got the backing of Ed Sheeran. He's got millions and millions. And they got some good American owners now. So we'll have to see what happens. Going to be very interesting in League One. My predictions, I did say Morecambe, Cambridge. And I did go for, believe, Exeter and Fleetwood to go down from that league. But I think Derby and Sheffield Wednesday to go up. Ipswich in the playoffs, I think, or Bolton. Bolton are on the rise as well. I should mention that Bolton are definitely on the rise. So we'll have to see what happens there. Going into League Two, we had 2 promoted teams as we talked about previously. Stockport County's come up. Grimsby Town's come up. Stockport are one of the favourites to get promoted automatically. Northampton up there, Mansfield and Bradford City. So we're going to have to see what teams come out of that. I think out of the teams to go down, I mentioned it before. I said Stevenage and I said Barrow. I think those 2 teams will go down. Although Stevenage has brought a lot of players in, I still think they're going to be there. I would say either that or Harrogate will be replaced by Stevenage. So we'll see what happens. Contenders for that league: Northampton, Mansfield, Bradford, Stockport County, Salford, Doncaster, Swindon Town. I think AFC Wimbledon won't be far off. So we'll have to see what happens. Johnny Jackson is the new manager there. He was the manager, great player for Charlton in the Premier League era not too long ago. He was a manager for Charlton last season. I think he'll have a good go at AFC Wimbledon. It's at a lower level, less expectation. I think Wimbledon might have a chance of getting into the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. But it's going to be an interesting season. I predicted Stockport would win that league. I also said, I think I said Stockport. Now I said Swindon even, and then I had Stockport to go up, and I think Mansfield will go up automatically. And I think in the playoffs, I'm going to say Leyton Orient to go up in the playoffs. So done that before. Done a little review there in the National League. I won't wear my heart on my sleeve because Scunthorpe's my other team. I've got Forest and Scunthorpe as my teams. I'm going to say that Wrexham are the favourites to go up. I do think Wrexham will go up and will be the favourites in the end of it all. I do think that Scunthorpe, my team, will end up in the playoffs, just narrowly getting in there. But if I'm honest, there's stronger teams in that league, and I personally think that I think I'm looking at somebody like, you know what, I'm going to go for Dagenham, my local team, because they've been playing some good football over the last couple of seasons. They've got some good backing and owners. I think Dagenham's going to go up as well, so I'm going to go Wrexham, Dagenham. Unfortunately for Scunthorpe, I really want them to go up. Heart says that wants them to go up, but Head says probably not realistic this season. It's probably might be a chance the season after. See what happens. Never like to say that about my own teams, but there we go. Thank you for tuning in. Just a little review, like I say, of what's been going on in the lower leagues, Championship through to League Two. I've been your host, Jamie Carter. Thank you for getting behind us and supporting us. One of my videos has got up to 300 odd views at the moment. Please continue to like and subscribe. I do a lot of content. I'm not one of these wishy-washy hosts that just comes out with rubbish stuff. I know my football. I know what I'm talking about with a lot of stuff. Please tune into us. Please give me your opinions in the comments section. Obviously, there's stuff I can improve, and I don't use all these fancy graphics and stuff. I'm keeping it more real, more for the fans. I don't believe in all the tacky graphics and all that kind of rubbish, so we're just going to leave it at that. Have a great week. I've got more episodes coming up today, and there'll be more coming up through the week. All the best. Bye for now.